Edward, welcome to the B2B Content Strategist podcast.
Amy, thanks so much for having me.
No, it's wonderful to have you here. Let's kick things off. So please, could you tell us a little bit about your role and also just a few sentences about what Supermetrics does as well?
Yeah, so just briefly, Supermetrics basically helps marketing and data teams work better with marketing data. So we bring all siloed marketing data from all the different platforms that marketing teams and performance marketers might use. For example, data from Facebook ads, LinkedIn ads, Google Analytics, HubSpot, Salesforce, and about 80 other platforms. And you can centralize that in reporting and analytics tools like spreadsheets, like Google Sheets, Excel, visualization tools like Data Studio, or then build a marketing data warehouse in products like Google BigQuery, Snowflake, and so forth. So really just help marketers gather all that siloed marketing data and help figure out what is happening with their marketing and enable them to work better with data. And that's really what Supermetrics does. And my role as a demand gen director is basically heading up our global demand gen. So our team is responsible for looking at our main customer segments. So we take a customer-centric approach to demand gen and basically go out into the market and generate demand within those major customer segments. So for example, marketing agencies are a big customer segment for us. So we'd go out and show the value Supermetrics gives to marketing agencies, and then other segments within the market. And we work full funnel. We look at what our numbers are looking like. We track those on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. We work cross-channel with a lot of different other teams as well to really drive the future of the business and make sure we have good opportunities coming into the pipeline. So that's kind of the short and sweet of what Supermetrics does and what our team does as part of that.
Awesome. How long has Supermetrics been around?
Quite a while, actually. So the story is quite interesting. Our CEO and founder was working as a marketing analyst in one of his previous jobs, and he would need to bring all this marketing data from different platforms into an Excel spreadsheet. And so he'd have to log into Google Analytics, he'd have to go into Facebook and all these other platforms. And so he built something that would automate the transfer of that data into the reporting and analytics tools that he uses. And then he shared that, and he found like a lot of other marketers and analysts had the same problem. And so he built essentially the first version of Supermetrics. And this was, I think it was around 2009, 2010. And eventually he set it up as a side business and then realized it had potential. So he decided he'd go all in. And then I think the first employee joined in 2015, 2016. I then joined a few years later, 2019. So around employee number 30, marketer number 4. And now we're 250 plus people and going strong. So it's been a fun journey to be part of so far, but that's the kind of short history of Supermetrics.
Yeah, that's amazing. So such a great story to hear, and obviously going from strength to strength as well. What does your team look like? So you mentioned marketer number 4, didn't you? And now you are leading up the demand gen. So what does your team look like?
Yeah, so we're now collectively about 25 in the whole marketing department, and the demand gen team is a 5-person team. And because we are not very channel specific, there's a lot of people with kind of broader skill sets, maybe leaning more to the generalist side. So we have basically a team of marketers, and we're in the process of basically building teams around those major customer segments. So we'll have a team responsible for customer segment number 1, customer segment number 2, customer segment number 3, and basically work on integrated demand campaigns across the funnel to generate demand for Supermetrics. And so we work a lot with our performance marketing team, who also work full funnel. They work with our brand team, they work with our product marketing team, our customer experience team, and they work heavily with us. We are sort of tied at the hip with our performance marketing team, essentially running paid ads all across the funnel, from top of funnel awareness and engagement on paid social to more middle to bottom of funnel paid search, more on the demand capture side. We're working on content. That's a big part of our demand gen playbook. And we also partner with a lot of other companies. That's a big part of our demand strategy. So at Supermetrics, as I said, we integrate with a lot of different platforms that you can pull marketing data from. And then you can kind of bring those into reporting and analytics platforms like Microsoft Excel, Google Sheets, and so forth. So we partner up with companies on both the data source and the data destination side. So later this evening, actually, we're running a live event with Spotify on digital audio advertising, because you can pull in Spotify ads data into your reports with Supermetrics. We teamed up with Groupon recently, which is actually a customer of ours, on full funnel performance marketing. So great brand to team up with. So that's the kind of things that we do in the demand team, and the kind of roles we have, and the kind of things we're working on.
That's super interesting. When it comes to content in particular, so for Supermetrics, what is the overarching content strategy? I know you mentioned about the live, and what else do you do content-wise in particular, and the focus of that?
Yeah, so it's evolved over time, and I think it's also partly based on the stage of the company. So when I joined, as I said, we were quite a small company. We were a small marketing team. We didn't have that many resources. So the content strategy and the decisions we made back then were kind of based on that situation. Then over time, it's evolved into many different things. But originally, it was built mainly on a sort of demand capture approach. So there's a lot of demand for Supermetrics, and we noticed that we could see through a lot of keyword research, and there's a lot of high intent search terms that people are putting into Google that Supermetrics can essentially solve. And an example could be if someone is searching for moving Google Analytics data into a spreadsheet. So that's really what we enable. So a lot of our content was built around how-to content at the mid to the bottom of the funnel, trying to acquire this high intent traffic. And we can show very clearly how you can do these tasks. So it was quite solution oriented, and it was a very natural way to bring in the product as well. So in order to do this, you can just start a trial of Supermetrics and essentially automate this process. And there were a lot of other examples in terms of like how to build an Instagram Insights dashboard, or how to build a Facebook ads report. So a lot of this mid to bottom of funnel search terms aligned really well with our product. And we saw this huge opportunity. And when we were going through doing our keyword research, we could just, there was so much we could write about, that it was more about, okay, what do we prioritize and where do we see the opportunity, and what makes sense in terms of our product roadmap, and what are some of the content pillars we're focusing on right now. So that was really the heart of our content strategy. It was really about search optimized content to rank for low volume but high intent search. And really the goal of our content was to obviously help people and educate and show a solution to a problem, but then also bring people onto a free trial of Supermetrics so they can try out the product, so that we can then kind of fill up our top of funnel. And with Supermetrics, you have a 14-day free trial. And we know that there's correlation between people who start a trial and then the amount of deals that we're able to process on a weekly, monthly basis. So it was really a sort of demand driver for our funnel. And over time, we've been able to create a little more content around that strategy. But then we've also felt the need, or we've always known there's the need to go up funnel as well, in that there's only a limited amount of demand to capture, but we also need to be creating demand. And so thinking more top of funnel, thinking more around our strategic narrative, thinking more around how can we really position ourselves as a thought leader in the marketing data and marketing analytics space, which is when things like our podcast came along. So we launched the Marketing Analytics Show about 1.5 years ago, and have had some great guests from some great companies sharing a lot of good advice on a variety of topics related to working with data and thinking about how we can be a little more analytical in our approaches to marketing and what's happening in our space at the moment. And then we're also going to be seeing a lot more of that content in our blog, which has traditionally remained a little more mid to bottom of funnel, search oriented. And I think bringing more of our content to social channels and having, because this is one thing that's changed as well over time, particularly when I started my marketing career, that social was a sort of distribution channel for your content.
Yeah.
Whereas now it's really about, okay, you might have created content for your blog or you might have done a podcast episode, but you then need to bring that natively into social platforms. So I think that's something we're going to be investing more in the future. And then another thing that we've focused more on recently is our guest post program. So we have a lot of people reach out with great ideas for guest posts on the Supermetrics blog, some not so good ideas and some that don't really fit with our scope. So we've had a lot of great guest writers sharing some of their really cool use cases of the product. And that's something we'll continue to do. So that's a sort of overview of how we've thought about content and how it's evolved over time as well.
So yeah, there's an awful lot going on there, isn't there? There's lots that you guys are doing. What have you decided to keep in-house, and what aspects of that marketing and content did you find easier to outsource to an agency or supplier, what have you? Yeah,
so most of the things we've produced, we've kept in-house initially, particularly while we figured out how things work. For example, when we started the podcast, I've been doing podcasting before, so I had some experience, but then we also wanted to make sure that we could kind of build up our processes and figure out how things work, and then see then if we can then find partners to help us scale, particularly on the production side. So that's a discussion we're having right now. But mainly in terms of traditional blog content, we've worked with freelance partners who are specialists in certain areas, because we have a pretty high threshold when it comes to quality, and we want to find people who know the product in the space. And we teamed up with people like Kaylee Moore, for example, who is an expert within marketing and e-commerce in particular, and she's written some great articles on e-commerce analytics for us. And so those are the kinds of partners that we've worked with in terms of bringing scale to our content. And so it's been a mix of partners and freelancers, but then also a lot has been done in-house as well. And we have a pretty small but powerful marketing team that got a lot done, and we were quite efficient. So that's been helpful as well.
Yeah, and on that efficiency, is there anything in particular you've done to try and optimize and streamline the day-to-day and bring in the efficiency with everything that you guys are managing?
Yeah, I think particularly with our original strategy of trying to create content that aligns with high intent search terms, we've built relatively good processes in terms of identifying those opportunities. And I think the harder part, as I said earlier, was then deciding which one we should prioritize first. And maybe that's where we would have discussions and figure out, okay, this is what we're going to be producing this month. This is on our content calendar. And we'd have a backlog in Trello, which is what we were originally using, of all the content we could create. And so we were never short of ideas, and it was more about figuring out, okay, who can work on what this month and who's doing what. And we had a pretty small but powerful content team, and we could produce stuff relatively quickly ourselves. I think we just had great people on the team, and we're lucky to work with great marketers and great content marketers. And then also with partners who we worked with on a regular basis, they were more familiar with our processes and were able to produce content quite quickly as well. So that enabled us to be relatively efficient and create quite a lot of content for a relatively small team.
You mentioned Trello. We used to use Trello for the first 3.5 years. We're nearly 5 years old. It was all about Trello, but we migrated to ClickUp. What did you move to? ClickUp or?
No, we went to Monday.com.
Oh, did you? Yeah. Similar. Yeah.
Which is cool. Yeah. So we used Trello a lot in the early days. And then now when we're just a bigger team and we have many teams within the marketing department and we all need to be on the same page, we found Monday was a great solution for that. And then the other thing is that this is going to be an upcoming destination for Supermetrics, so marketers will be able to bring in marketing data into Monday.
Right,
so it was
brilliant.
a good way to test that as well. So yeah, we've been happy with that.
Yeah, no, I've heard great things when we were playing around with, Asana, Monday, ClickUp. ClickUp was the one we went for, but I've heard great things about all of them. They're all very similar, aren't they? So, so let's talk about one of your best content marketing initiatives. So what do you consider to be, I know best is quite a strong word, but a really, memorable content marketing initiative that you're super, super proud of?
Yeah, I think there's a couple. I think a lot of the content we've created, I'm really proud of, because it's what I would call silent content. It's something that isn't going to be shared on social. It's not going to be, go viral in that sense, because we're trying to rank for these terms that specific people have found as a challenge. And we can see from the data how many people who have clicked on that article and read through it go on to then start a trial of Supermetrics. And there's been some posts in particular that have just been incredible in terms of the amount of results they've driven for the business. So I think those for sure have been very proud of. But I think one concrete one in particular was more along the lines of sharing our own story and experience and kind of documenting our journey. Because I remember my first year at Supermetrics, when I joined, we were closing in on 10 million ARR. And then in 12 months, so in 1 year, we doubled from 10 to 20 our annual recurring revenue. And we shared an article on some of the learnings from that period of how we grew from 10 to 20 million annual recurring revenue in 12 months. And that really took off, and it generated a lot of buzz. And I think a lot of people who kind of had us on the radar really realized that we were growing quite quickly. And I think we were bigger than a lot of people thought. And from a recruitment and employer branding perspective, it was a huge help as well. And a lot of people became more aware of Supermetrics and interested in Supermetrics as a workplace. So that was, I think, one concrete example where things worked really well. And we then had an idea that documenting our own journey and things we've done would work well. And that kind of proved that. So we then did some other articles on some other things we've done, on like how we actually use Supermetrics ourselves, and so forth. So that, I think, is one that really, really sticks in the mind.
Do you think it's because it's the storytelling aspect that people really liked with that content, the journey and the story of it all?
Yeah, for sure. And I've worked in B2B SaaS for quite some time. I was working in B2B SaaS before I joined Supermetrics at an agency where we worked with B2B SaaS companies on their growth marketing. And I always felt that the best way to market to other B2B SaaS marketers is just showing what you as a B2B SaaS company have done with your marketing. And obviously with Supermetrics being in the MarTech space, we market to marketers. So it works really well. And I think it's just sharing your experience and knowledge. And one thing I've noticed from being in the B2B SaaS community in particular is that everyone is super open, pretty transparent, really keen to share things they've learned with other marketers. And that's essentially what we did. And I think that's probably why it took off and was shared so much. And we got a lot of people reading that article.
Yeah, totally. I agree. As we've started to work more in the B2B SaaS space as well, it's a very open community, isn't it? And it's really great to see everybody is really just sharing, aren't they, and trying to help each other. So no, it's good. Let's talk about the opposite side. So, are there any particular campaigns that just didn't quite go how you expected? So any cautionary tales or funny stories of campaigns that perhaps didn't quite hit the mark?
Nothing really that kind of missed the mark. I think particularly with content, we have a pretty systematic playbook. And so in that sense, there's not been too much deviation from that. I think one thing I would say though, in terms of things to be wary of or kind of advice for others is to not just follow and copy what others are doing. I think it can be very easy, particularly when you're, reading about what other companies have done and looking at their playbooks and so forth. And I think I mean, I'm a huge fan of reading and learning and listening to a lot of podcasts, but it's more about the process. The thing I'm interested in is more about the process of how companies went about landing at the decision or the strategy they made. Because a lot of people ask me, what's working for you right now? What's your content marketing playbook, or what does your demand gen playbook look like? And I think particularly from a content perspective, a lot of the things we did might not work for other businesses, particularly the decision to focus so much on mid to bottom of funnel content around organic search, because we just saw there was an opportunity there. If we didn't see that opportunity, we would have probably come up with a different playbook, a different strategy. And not just that, but I think it was also based on the stage we were at as a business, the resources we had in the team, and the kind of amount we could do, because content was just part of our marketing mix. There was a lot of other things we needed to do. We needed to launch new products. We needed to partner up with partners. We needed to be active on social. We needed to kind of think about our brand and positioning and all these other things that go with marketing. So I think really learn and listen to what others are doing, but don't just blindly copy and try to replicate their playbooks, but rather think critically about why they made those decisions and what would make sense for our business. And in a way, come up with your own playbook based on a lot of the advice and learnings you get from others, but don't just copy what others do, because it might not work.
Yeah, 100%. So there's a lot of context required, isn't there? And it can very much depend on what's going on and the industry and the business and the solution and the audience and everything. There's a lot of factors. Let's move to the quick fire questions. So what's one takeaway tip that you would give to other content marketers who are looking to optimize their content output?
Just ship it. So
yeah,
just get the work done, just publish something, get feedback and learn quickly, and don't wait for it to be perfect. Just ship it. That was a big mantra in the Supermetrics marketing team, particularly within our content team and in my previous company. And it was super valuable advice.
Is that based around trying to fight perfectionism and, not that like done is better than perfect, I guess, but somewhat around that?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Cool. What is one typically overlooked or undervalued tool that you would recommend content marketers like yourself should look into?
One that's been useful for us is Slack and social listening in Slack. So when people are mentioning certain terms or around our brand, we get a lot of good ideas for mid to bottom of funnel content. We get some really good use cases. We get find some potential guest writers based on what they're sharing. So again, this works for us because there's a lot of discussion around our brand and the product. And so if there's the same thing happening for you, that can be a great way to source content ideas and writers.
How do you, so social listening with Slack, so is that where you're embedding into different Slack communities and hearing what the conversations are going on within them?
Yeah, so basically if we have a Slack channel where if people are mentioning the brand, or there's also products like Meltwater, which we use, which will then automatically notify you, and you can kind of just keep track of what the conversation is. So it's a really, really good way to get content ideas as well. Yeah,
sounds awesome. Yeah, it's a really good tip. Thank you. If you could create any kind of content, so we're talking sky's the limit, billboard in Times Square, primetime TV show, no real budget cap, but just some awesome content, what would be the dream content campaign?
Yeah, if the sky's the limit, I don't know if it would be the best from a business perspective, but I've always thought this would be very cool, would be to have a documentary following a group of marketers from around the world, whether it's 5 or 6 marketers, behind the scenes in their daily life, their challenges, difference in cultures, how they work with data, and just get a bit of an insight into what it's like to be a marketer. I think that would be super cool. Could be a sort of Netflix style miniseries, 6 to 10 episodes, really well produced, shared on, I think on YouTube would be a good distribution channel. I think it would be really, really cool to have that kind of content where you see a lot of documentaries about athletes or people from other industries, but a bit of a behind the scenes into what it's like to be a marketer could be pretty cool.
That'd be really good, wouldn't it? I would definitely tune into that.
Yeah, it would just be the marketers.
Yeah, it would, wouldn't it? Yeah. Well, there's enough marketers, isn't there, that would really geek out on that. So I think that sounds fab. I'll be all in on that if that goes ahead. This actually, the final question leads really nicely on from that, which is, so on B2B content strategists, we're speaking to true leaders like yourself in the B2B tech world. Who do you think we should be inviting onto the show?
Yeah, you should invite Sonia Jacob.
Sonia Jacob. Okay.
She is a great marketing leader, a great content marketer, someone I've interviewed for the podcast I ran in the past. Brilliant. And is just a wealth of knowledge. So highly recommend Sonia Jacob.
Awesome. Thank you. And do you think Sonia should be followed in the documentary if it goes ahead as well as one of the... Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome.
She can be one of the 6.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much for, just coming on, sharing lots of useful insight into what you guys are doing at Supermetrics. It's all really exciting and the growth that you've had and the way that you approach demand gen. It's fascinating to hear. So thank you so much for coming on. It's been an awesome conversation.
Oh, my pleasure, Amy. It was a lot of fun. Thanks for having me.